have Major General Shiv Jaiswal. He is the Keeper of India, sir. Then there is another young boy, Dr. Ashish Jaiswal, 61-62 batch. Our OPA president, they're very, very active, okay? You know his name very well, Mr. Hari Shivani. And we also have Faizan Nizami, come, okay? Yeah. 2005 batch, and we have Mr. Norman Siddiqui, his mom is here also. He is the most important, we have to be very good to be the treasurer of Old Boys Association. Okay, thank you.
Respected Principal, Brother Hector Pinto, my dear friends, teachers, staff, and most of all, young boys and girls of SEN. For me to be back here on stage after 58 years is both a pleasure and also very nostalgic. I have lots of memories of SEN, having studied here for 10 years, 2 years as a day scholar, 8 years as a boarder. I just share two incidents that always I remember. Of course, the first one is about corporal punishment. In those days, we used to see a lot of Western movies, and what you now have as the extended auditorium that was short, and that's where the movies were screened from. And Reverend Brother Burke was the one who would show us the movies. So there are a lot of Westerns, and you do that firing and there's that sound of ricocheting bullets. So we could imitate that by whistling. Loud whistle, 1 finger, 2 fingers, that can, and without using your fingers, loud whistle. So I was also learning that during study period in the evening. I was trying to whistle. It was quite short, nothing would happen. But suddenly the silence was broken by a piercing whistle, and all eyes were on me. The principal, Reverend Brother Morrissey, he shouted, "Who is that? Chokra boy." I mean, one couldn't avoid that. So I was called up. He had his cane with him. I got 4 solid whacks on the behind, and for about 5 or 6 days I couldn't sit comfortably. So those were those days. Another thing that I always remember is when we came back after beating Sherwood or after winning a match on the flats, the juveniles. I was fortunate to have represented SEN in the juveniles. Prem was also there with me. And then in the courts, both hockey and football, seniors hockey and football, and I represented SEN in the relay team. And every time we beat Sherwood, it used to be something. We would enter the dining hall and do a resounding reception from everybody in the school, banging of forks and knives, and we really felt like great heroes those days. So those are two things which I embedded in my mind. Of course, there are many others, but these two things I thought I'd mention to you. Now I'll come on and speak to you something about the armed forces. I've served for almost 40 years in the army, so I know more about the army than the other two services, that is the Navy and the Air Force. But all three are terrific in every respect. As far as the army is concerned, you can divide it into 3 major categories. One is the fighting arms, the supporting arms, and the services. In the fighting arms, you have the armor, that is the tanks, and in the other fighting arm is the infantry. There are 2 kinds of infantry. The infantry that is generally on foot, and infantry which is mechanized. Now, mechanized infantry are people who move in armored protected vehicles. They're called BMPs or ICVs, infantry combat vehicles. They are protected. They can move fast. When they reach their destination, they dismount and get into the normal infantry role. Among the fighting troops, that is the first category I mentioned, are also the paratroopers. I belong to the paratroopers, though I'm a sapper, that is, I'll come to that a little later. The paratroopers are a composite force that go into enemy territory, jump from the aircraft, and then carry out the normal tasks. To become a paratrooper is special. Once you're in the army, you're put through a rigorous 3 months test, probation, and only if you're found fit can you continue or join the paratroopers. So I've told you about the fighting arms, that is the armored corps and the infantry. Now we'll come to the support arms. Support arms basically is the artillery. Artillery are the guys who fire shells long distance, 30-40 kilometers. Why is the artillery required? Let's say if you have to capture a particular location, enemy location. So before the infantry goes up there to capture that location, the artillery fires solid shells and does as much damage as it can on the enemy there, and then the infantry goes. So artillery, and there are various kind of guns you have. You have mountain artillery, you have field artillery, you have medium artillery. That's a subject we can talk about later. In addition to the normal artillery, you also have the air defense artillery. They are the guys who take on enemy aircraft. They have a very fast system. Let's say an aircraft crosses the border. They have a very fast computerized system of locating where the aircraft is, tracking it, and firing on that. So artillery, after the artillery comes the engineers. I'm from the engineers. We are called sappers. Our basic job is to keep the line of movement. Let's say if you're attacking. When you attack an enemy, the enemy lays mines in front of his defenses. So it is the job of the sappers to clear those mines so that the infantry, even if it has gone across through a minefield, there are some casualties, etc. Then the engineers come, they clear a path, a wide path through which vehicles can pass. Vehicles are required, why? Because you have to carry ammunition, you have to carry equipment, you have to carry rations, take it across. The other thing sappers are required to do is, let's say you come across a water obstacle. A water obstacle, a tank may not be able to cross that. A vehicle that is a truck or a light vehicle, a jeep, whatever, cannot cross that water obstacle. So we have the ability of throwing across a bridge. We can construct a bridge about 40 meters in an hour or so. It's equipment bridge. A vehicle comes, it backs onto the gap, and then there is a system by which a panel is launched. So you can launch 4 such panels to cover a gap of about 40 meters. This can be used in a dry gap where there is no water, or even a small gap where there is water. Let's say there is a huge water body, maybe 100 meters, 200 meters wide. For that also we have equipment where a vehicle reverses to the river, lowers a pontoon bridge. The pontoon comes into water, unfolds. And like that we keep, like a mechanic said, we keep connecting these pontoons until we can reach the other land. So basically that's the job of sappers. We also take on the major responsibility of nuclear, biological warfare, chemical warfare. It's been there ever since, and this is something the sappers specialize in. So I've told you in the support arms, the artillery, sappers, the Corps of Engineers, that's us. The third is the signals. They're the guys who have to maintain communication. Communication is so important. You have to tell you where you are. You want extra supplies, you want extra rations, you want extra ammunition. You have to be able to communicate. Today, of course, means of communication by your mobiles, etc., are very swift and good, but then it has to be in cipher, it has to be coded. You can't let the enemy know what you're talking about. So that signal communication is extremely important, and they have a tough job to do. Because as soon as you have gone across, captured a locality, you should be able to lay a line. Line communication is important. Only thing is line communication with shelling and blasting can be broken, can be damaged. So repairing that also is a major task of theirs. Then in the support arms, we also have the aviation. The aviation, basically, they provide early information to the artillery. The artillery cannot see 30-40 kilometers ahead. So this aircraft will go up, the helicopter will go up, it'll locate the target 30-40 kilometers ahead and pass the West flag, where this artillery gun will focus onto that, will set its range and fire the artillery shell. And this helicopter can also give them correction that you're 500 meters short or you're 500 meters to the left or right, whatever. And gradually, the guns will be able to fire bang onto the target. So these are the support arms. Now we come to the third part, that is the services. A very, very important element in the armed forces. The services first is the Army Service Corps, ASC. They are the gentlemen who provide you rations. The army marches on its stomach, I'm sure you've heard of that great Napoleon saying. So they provide you rations of all kinds wherever you are. They have a tough job in places like Leh, Ladakh. Why? Because during winter no vehicles can move on the roads. So during the summer period when the roads are open, they are busy stocking rations for 5 months for all the troops that are there. So that's a colossal job. So the Army Service Corps supplies, gives you all the rations, fresh rations. Fresh means whatever vegetables you have that time. And when I was posted in Leh, in fact higher than Leh for more than 2 years during the Kargil operations, I was there. In winter, sometimes you don't get any fresh. So for many days you have to eat tinned rations, tinned milk, tinned eggs, tinned vegetables. You get fed up with that. But then it's also part of life and enjoyment. The ASC also provides all the fuel, petrol, whatever else that is required is also provided by the ASC, various lubricants. Next in the services, I'll mention is the Army Ordnance Corps. Ordnance are the guys who provide you all the equipment from a needle to an aircraft to a ship, whatever. Every item that you have that is issued to you, whether it be a vehicle, whether it be your uniform, whether it be your weapons, guns, artillery, everything is provided by the Army Ordnance Corps. Then we come on to the Army Medical Corps. A subsidy of the Army Medical Corps, though independent, is also the Army Dental Corps. Then there are many others, support elements which may not interest, but yes, one more important one is the electrical and mechanical engineers. They are the ones who repair all your equipment. They are the ones, if let's say your tank or your vehicle has got bogged down in the field, when there's shelling and firing going on, these team reaches, fetches up there, carries out the repairs if it can. If it can't carry out the repairs, you tow the vehicle back to a safer place and carry out the repairs. The medical, I must say, do a tremendous job in the army. They've saved so many lives. The aviation has helped save so many lives. Because even if it's a treacherous area, they fly to that place in their helicopters, pick up the casualty, bring him back to a safer place where he can be operated upon or whatever essential treatment that is required. Then the other services that are there, you have the military police, we have the Judge Advocate General, that is the legal who provides all the legal advice, and because discipline is so important in the army. And if there is a discipline case, there is quick and immediate punishment, and then you follow the straight path. So that's what I want to tell you about the armed forces in general. Those who are keen to join the armed forces, every profession contributes towards the progress of a nation. Whether you're a doctor, whether you're a teacher, you're a businessman, you're an entrepreneur, whatever. But one thing we got to remember, that your country has to be safe. If you're not safe, if you're not militarily strong, then portions of your country can be grabbed by a greedy enemy, you can be enslaved. So that is very, very important. That's why we must have young men full of spirit who would like to join the armed forces. Let me tell you that it is the youngsters in the army, the captains and the majors, who are the real strength. They are the guys who are not managers, they are leaders. You are trained to be a leader. You have to lead your men. You have to lead your men where he has to be prepared to die for the country. So that is the kind of level of motivation and josh you have. Joining the armed forces, there are several paths to joining the armed forces. All that is available on Google. I'll just mention a little about the NDA. I joined NDA in '64, immediately after my senior Cambridge. In fact, senior Cambridge got over in '62. We were the first batch that was the Indian School Certificate. In '63, December, I did my IFC. '63, I sat for the NDA exam, and '64, I joined the NDA. NDA, life is tough, but excellent. You are converted, you are changed from being a boy to becoming a man. You have responsibility, you are made physically fit, you are kept alert, you are trained to be a leader. The first, NDA is 3 years, 6 terms. The first 4 terms, all the training is common to the Army, Navy and the Air Force. It is only in the 5th and 6th term when you graduate to your specific arm. Whether you're in the Army, then you get specific training of the Army. If you're in the Air Force, you are trained to fly, basic training in flying. If you're in the Navy, you're given a lot of training on the naval aspects. In the Army, after you finish your NDA training for 3 years, then you go to your respective service. Like I was in the Army, I went to the Indian Military Academy, Dehradun, where you spend 1 year. The Air Force goes to the Air Force Academy, Navy goes to the Naval Academy. And then you get commissioned as a young officer. And that's life. You have a great time. I can say that Army life is very pure. Pure in the sense, you do your job. There is a lot of camaraderie. There has to be camaraderie because it's teamwork. Nobody can do anything alone. You all have to, when you face the enemy, your life depends on your buddy. And you as a leader have to see that your troops, your men, are always given the best. I'll just quote the Indian Military Academy. There was one General Chetwood. What he had said is the motto that we follow in the Army. The nation comes first, always and every time. The men you command comes next. Their comfort, their wellness, their security and safety comes next. Your own safety and comfort come last, always and every time. That is a motto that is imbibed in us, and as a leader, as an officer, one has to continue to follow that. I'm sure I can see all the bright faces here, that whichever one of you chooses to go to the armed forces, you will be a happy man, you will be a dedicated man. Well, that's all I've got to give as a brief introduction to the armed forces, basically the Army. I'd like to take on any questions that you have on this issue.
If you have any questions regarding NDA, armed forces, raise your hand.
As you said, you have done para 2 course now. So what do you think, which part was the toughest? As I have also heard about that they didn't give you sleep and you given cold waters, 100-kilometer runs, etc., etc. So which part you think was the toughest? And you just felt that now.
I can't clear some parts that you said. Say that again. I got to finish it as a paratrooper. What is the difficulty as a paratrooper?
Yes, sir. So there is some part where you get that, now it's just enough. I just have to quit, etc.
Thank you. Everybody got the question? See, over a period of time, firstly, to become a paratrooper, you have to volunteer. Nobody can be nominated or detailed to be a paratrooper. So only those who have got confidence in themselves will volunteer. And it's not tough. If you are determined, if you have the will, you prepare yourself. The training is tough, there's no doubt. And don't give up. What everybody sees in you, you may falter sometimes physically. Not important. They see your potential, they see your willpower and determination. That is equally important. So if someone wants to join the paras, beautiful. I mean, as I told the principal, I'm a guy who blows his own trumpet. So though I'm now an old man, I'm still doing my para jumps. Last year I did my para jump in February. So that's a pleasure. We oldies get together. हम लोग सब retired बंदे हैं. We get together and on a specific day, that is our racing day, etc. We have joined jump and we do a para jump there. So nothing is tough. It's your will, it's your determination. Yes, sir. I hope I have answered your query.
Koshish.
Sir, good morning. Good morning, sir.
Hi.
Sir, can a Nepali guy go for NDA and join as Gorkha in the Indian Army? Through NDA?
I wouldn't know that for sure, but yes, we had a number of officers in the NDA from the Nepal Army. We also have lots of officers from the NDA who are in the Indian Army. Now the specifics, I really do not know how to go about it. But yes, I've quoted both examples. There is a Brigadier Guru I know very well. He is from Pokhara and or thereabouts, and he's a domicile of Nepal, also dual citizenship of India, and he's a brigadier in the Indian Army, now retired. So that's definitely possible. Suggestion and advice to anybody who wants to apply for the armed forces. Firstly, make yourself physically fit. That's important. And you are educated in such a beautiful school as SEM. You will be physically fit, you will be good in the English language, which is also very important. So first is the UPSC entrance exam, which is academic. I mean, like, okay, you can pass that. That's okay. The main issue is the interview. Those who have passed the UPSC written exam, they call for the SSB, Services Selection Board. In that, they see your physical fitness. They'll assess you, how you speak, how you react. They'll give you a task to do, and a model will be placed on the ground of there is a hill, there is this, there's that, how will you attack? Some simple task. And so that's okay. You do as best as you can. Don't worry too much on that. But you have to be careful to speak the truth. They have psychologists who are there. And those psychologists are capable of reading and seeing through you. So I keep telling everyone that be sincere, be honest. If something you don't know, say, I don't know this. They're not looking for someone who's qualified in everything. They're looking for a person who has the potential, somebody who's sincere and will have the determination to lead. That's what's required. Thank you.
But the editor has asked me to fill in the gap, which is very important, and you know how it is. So without filling the gaps, you don't get full marks. So when I was with Shiv was a year senior to me in 63. I was in 64 batch. And I recollect one episode. We were in 1960. We used to have this, I don't know if we still have it, juveniles. Do you have that? Okay, so we used to have that juvenile tournament in the flats. So we were playing, our SEM team was playing. She was the captain, I was the goalkeeper, and there were other people also. So in the flats we were playing, and then we won, we scored one goal.
Before I start, I requested the principal if I can blow my own trumpet And the reason for this is because this is where I learned how to play the trumpet in Sen in 1958 or 59.
the XMIs. I want to thank the principal first for allowing us to start such a session. I think it gives great exposure to the students and a great way to interact with prominent alumni. We would like to thank General Jaswal on behalf of the OBA. If you can just give him a round of applause. Fantastic. Another round of applause for the principal for allowing us to come back to the school and relive the old days. I think in the coming future we'll probably have a couple of more such interactions and sessions. Also thank the OBA President, Anish Tiwari sir. We've been told by the principal that this is probably the first event post-COVID where we're all gathered in the auditorium. So I hope things get better for all of us and we organize more such events in the future. Also, guys, people who are in class 10, girls and boys both, and class 12 who are going to be leaving STEM and probably going to various colleges and build up your career. So the Old Boys Association is an organization which will act as a link to your school and the outer world. So just to inform you guys that we are available online. There is a website called semoba.in. So in case any of you want to become members of the Old Boys Association, you're most welcome. Boys and girls both. We'll soon be working on the name of the organization as well. And that's all. I think the OBA is a platform where you can interact with senior alumni and probably get a chance to know more about different careers you choose in your life. So thank you all of you, and it was great to come back to school. Thanks a lot. All the best.